Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Money-ish Show. This week we have a special guest on the show because he's my long-term friend, probably close to 20 years now. We've been friends and business associates. This guy has probably saved me more money in my business than anybody else on the face of the planet. You guys hear me talk a lot about taxes and tax structures. This is the guy that I steal all the information from, that feeds me all the data. So we're going to talk to him today about businesses, entrepreneurship, what works behind the scenes a little bit, and we'll get into it with the owner and founder of Lodestar Tax and Consulting. You can find him on lodestar.tax if you want to go look it up real quick. I'll give you more information as the show goes on. On that note, thank you, Josh Belk, for coming all the way from Chicago, Illinois.
Andrew, truly a pleasure. Good to see you again.
Dude, it was always a fun time. Most of my meetings, when we do the shows, I meet someone for the first time yesterday and day before. So I did 3 shows this week. Wednesday was a guy from Hong Kong. That was a different one. And then yesterday was 2 guys from Tulsa, Oklahoma, 2 kind of random one. And but I'm someone new and fresh, and so today was a pleasant day on my schedule when it's like, oh, cool, it's my old buddy Josh that you came in and spent some time with me, hung out, brought your wife with you. Mm-hmm. You guys will do some vacationing and sightseeing maybe while you're here.
A little bit, yep.
What I want to talk about, dude, is I know we could talk about taxes until we're blue in the face, which is what I normally do when I'm around you. And I love going deep level, strategizing, looking ahead, what's all the new stuff out, etc. And maybe I'll ask you, if you want to think on this one, maybe towards the end, maybe I'll ask you, give us one, is there something like new out right now that we should kind of know about, or something new that's happening? Maybe I'll ask that one towards the end of the show. Because I think what I want to do this time with you is not talk about taxes, very unusual for me. And I want to talk about kind of behind the scenes, right? Because here's my thought. You get realistically really detailed private information of business owners that you do taxes for, of thousands of business owners that you've done in the time frame. And what I mean by that is, like, you see through all the facade, through all the kind of walls that are up, and it's like, dude, these are the real data, actual facts and points. And what I want to do is talk about, like, dude, give us some advice behind the scenes of all these companies you've ever seen, not the companies' names, but there's a ton of stuff that you've learned through 20 years of what's worked, what hasn't worked, what made a company successful, what did not make a company successful, what you thought looking at it was like, oh, this is a really good idea, and then 2 years later, they're out of business. I want to go like kind of behind the scenes with you on all this advice. I think all this knowledge and wisdom I think you're sitting on, and I'm going to try to extract it from you today.
Let's
How about that one, dude?
Sounds like fun.
That is not a tax podcast at all. I want to go straight at business advice here with you, man. And I know you do some consulting at Lodestar to a certain degree now. So, okay, let's back up. In the process of all the taxes you've done, let's try to find some common core principles or common denominators that you see. Let's talk about successful companies first. When you are doing, again, I'm saying the taxes, just behind the scenes, when you see these companies that are just successful, they're thriving, they're growing, they make money, what are some of the principles or common core features you see that are very synergistic amongst those companies?
Well, I think when an entrepreneur or somebody who desires to be one anyway,
Sure.
or desires to start a business, usually they're coming with it with a lot of passion.
Yeah.
So they're coming with it, and with that passion, many times comes a lot of emotion.
Okay, it's true.
And most of the time, business is not successful because of the emotion that business owner has.
Okay.
It may help fuel it, but it's not because of that emotion. And when a business owner kind of goes in and starts a business, and they make all of their decisions based on emotion,
Okay.
They end up really truly setting themselves up for failure. I can go in a little bit deeper on that. So when you think about, and this is probably an overused analogy, but when you're going in and building a house,
Okay.
a lot of times, if you sit down with a husband and wife and they're wanting to build a house, that person that's selling you the house many times is talking about, this is what the house is going to look like. They're thinking about the aesthetics. Maybe if there's a husband and wife, the wife is worried about what color drapes are we going to have, what carpeting, what hardwood floors, what is that going to look like, and that's all kind of emotional. And but you need that person there that is kind of reminding you the most important part of that house is that foundation. So what are we building this house on? And the same thing is true with the business. A lot of times business owners have a wonderful idea. So they're coming with it, they have this tremendous idea that they want to monetize on, or maybe it's not even just financial. Maybe they're wanting to make an impact. Maybe it's a nonprofit, they're wanting to make an impact. But we understand that money is needed to fuel all of that. Or needed essentially to achieve some sort of level of success. There is a money element. Money is kind of always in the middle. But if you're going into that business and all you're thinking about is the grandeur of success, and you don't take that necessary time to address the foundation, what's truly important, so you're not essentially building that house on sand, but you are taking the time to making sure that it is built on something sturdy before you build that business up. The business owners that take that time and get those people around them and listen to that helpful advice are usually ones that will achieve success.
Okay, so I'm following you. I want to go a little bit deeper with you. I'm going to play the role of just kind of that viewer, right? When you talk about as an entrepreneur, and I understand you're saying emotion and passion, and you talk about that foundation of the house, right? And you're referring to the business owner has to make sure that, the business owner has to make sure their foundational structure is strong so they can grow. When you say foundational structure for a business, what are you seeing those key elements right there of the foundation?
Okay, so when I'm talking about that, we can talk about structure, and I'm not necessarily meaning
tax,
tax
LLC
and
structure,
LLC,
no.
all that stuff. We could get into that, but I think your listeners
I'm trying to
probably
avoid that right now.
Yeah, they may shut it off pretty quick because it's not a very entertaining conversation. But when I talk about that, meaning is you aren't making your decisions based purely on emotion. So you're going through and you're taking the time to making sure that the decision that you do make in every aspect of the startup of your business is one that is going to be there regardless if you're feeling it that day or you're not feeling it that day. So really having those principles of business in place to which are going to hold firm. And in taking maybe even going a step deeper is truly understanding what is the purpose, what is the vision that you have. Understanding first and foremost, what is that vision? Simon Sinek, the whole start with why. Sometimes it may be a start with a who, but whatever is the reason why you're doing what you're doing, that is part of that foundation, that is there and that is kept in front of you. So you understand the vision, reminding yourself of the vision, reminding your team of the vision consistently. And then everything else gets built around that. Understanding what are your core values. Because once again, if your emotion sometimes will pull you away from your core values. So then you end up acting in a way or building your business in a way that is contrary to who you are and where you're wanting to go, because you're trying to achieve somebody else's idea of success, or you're trying to achieve some sort of status, maybe it's fame, whatever it is. And you always consistently have to go back to those core values. What is the vision? What is the mission? What is the direction you're truly wanting to go? And what is success truly going to look like for you? That may or may not involve financial success. That may or may not involve being an influencer or achieving fame. But if you're consistently going back to whatever that foundation, whatever those foundational principles are for you and what you want for your business, if you're consistently going back there, you'll make better decisions.
Yeah, so you're again getting into the point of what you're saying as a business owner, entrepreneur, solo entrepreneur. It's very, very important to take a pause and nail down that foundational structure of what are my core values that I'm trying to build this business off of, and then what is my vision of where I'm trying to head with this thing. And that vision changes. I don't think you're saying vision for 50 years. But what is my vision of the product, the company that I'm building out right now? Where am I heading the next 1 year, 3 years, 1 month, 3 months down the road? And making sure everything aligns back with that vision, that purpose, that drive that's inside of it, so that it's not ran off of purely emotion of wherever the day brings. If it's rainy, sunshine, got an argument with somebody, didn't get an argument with someone, had a great cup of coffee, didn't have a cup of coffee, and you're making decisions based off of those things.
Well, you see, if you read, and I know you're very well read as well, But when you read a lot of successful, not just business owners, but leaders inside of a business structure, maybe somebody that's in the C-suite, and they put books out there and they talk many times maybe about their weekly meetings. And we were talking about weekly meetings here a little bit ago. And one thing you'll see many successful business owners do in their meeting, it doesn't matter if it's at a sales meeting with the marketing team. It doesn't matter if they're talking about their IT department, their finance department. It doesn't matter, or if it's the C-suite themselves. Is in every time they meet in that weekly meeting, the very first thing they do is to remind themselves before they even get into the conversation of why are we here, what is the purpose, what is it ultimately that we're trying to accomplish. And that becomes the focus point or the focal point of every single one of those meetings and every decision that they make.
Yeah, it's funny. I built that new my planner. I don't know if I've shown it to you or not, but in it, because I at this point in my career, it's just most of my life is meeting level, and I got to the point where I couldn't find a planner that had in it a section just for all my meetings. Like, this is what I'm doing, and so I built this planner, and in it I have my meetings. Section that I literally custom built for me. And the very top question, I ask certain questions before I go into a meeting of what is the purpose of this meeting? And then what is one of the questions I have there is, what is the main kind of point I'm trying to drive home in this meeting to the team, to whatever it is? And then what is the main thing I'm trying to take out of this meeting? Meaning, what am I trying to leave with in this meeting? And I fill this stuff out before I ever go into the meetings, so that I'm very, very hyper focused into what we're supposed to be getting accomplished inside of it. It used to be a thing where, dude, I would have a meeting and I would go for 5 hours straight inside of a meeting, because it was like, let's just keep going and finish this and finish this and finish this. But you can't solve everything in that one meeting. And a lot of these meetings that's why they're weekly meetings, because it takes freaking time to push through everything. Inside of it. And you brought up a great point, because I want to ask you this question, because you see so much behind the scenes. You see all these leaders and CEOs of these companies, successful and failure. And you started to mention some of it right there, like kind of a successful point that you see is that these leaders of companies that are successful have that meeting process. What other kind of things are out there that you see? Are those leaders of successful companies? Are they super high in integrity? Are they extremely organized? Do they wake up early in the morning? Do you see any other things that are kind of common core in those, and the leaders of the companies?
I think number one is that maybe, I don't know if there's necessarily a common thread, but I think for that business owner to reach that level is they need to have a true understanding of their authentic self, of who they are, understanding where they're wanting to go, and be willing to be transparent with people they put around them, to be able to, first of all, for them to be self-aware enough to understand these are areas that of business or of life even, because a lot of times they overlap, that maybe I struggle with. And to be able to be transparent, to be vulnerable enough with those individuals that are around you, to be able to help you, that maybe they're strong in those particular areas, to be able to help you as an individual, because if the foundation of you yourself falls apart, then the business is going to fall apart. I see this over and over again with clients that we work with, and just working with other business owners, even if they aren't clients. When there are other issues going on outside of the business, personal issues, whatever the case may be, it almost always impacts the bottom line of the business.
Interesting.
And you wouldn't think that, okay, the owner of the business, they're going through marital issues, or they have a child that may be having drug issues, whatever the case may be, and when those kind of situations end up impacting the business owner, almost always we see a really hard negative impact on the bottom line of the company. And you would think, okay, well, this company has 150 employees. Somebody else can step in.
Why does it one?
For some reason, that it ends up impacting the culture of the entire business.
Wow.
And I don't know if there's something that can be clearly defined. It just seems to, at least from almost categorically from the businesses that we work with, that we see the numbers, that when there's an issue at the top, even on a personal level, that it ends up impacting the business as a whole.
It's so unique that you brought up that on the authenticity side. I was recently interviewing a guy named Lance Tanaka from Hong Kong, and he runs a consulting company. And when he started his consulting company, he only works with the top 10 companies inside of a industry or a sector of business. Okay, so like he's like, I'm gonna start a consulting company, and he came from high level Pepsi and Nike, and so he went after, like, say the sector of banking. He would only consult with the leaders of in the banking realm of, say, Bank of America, JP Morgan, Credit Suisse, only like the top 5. And if you were not inside that, he just wouldn't take you as a client. And then he went to accounting firms and whatever is Deloitte and McKinsey, and he'd only consult the leaders of those. And he's got like the who's who of consulting clients, and he's at 20-year contracts with some of these companies. And so in all these leaders, it was unique because he said, there's 8 challenges that a leaders face that we try to help them with as a consultant. The number one problem he said that leaders face is authenticity. Was the number one thing. It was the same thing that you just said. Was he said, because as a leader, sometimes what happens is they see a leader that they like. They see a leader that's on social media now or whatever it is, and they kind of try to copy that leader and try to become that leader. And he said it never, ever, ever works out. He said the best leaders are the ones that are just truly understand who they are, their gifts, their strengths, and just be that leader and allow the people around them, the staff they bring in, the team they bring in, to identify with that leader. Because he said the other side of it, when you're like it's not that you're trying to be fake, but you're trying to be someone else, eventually it cracks, and then your team is confused, and that's like who they bought into, and it messes up the whole underneath behind it, basically, he said. So unique that's the same that you brought up, was the authenticity of that leader there.
Well, business is going to stress test us.
Yeah.
We've known each other for a number of years, and when the pressures of business come in, all those impurities, are going to expose themselves.
Yeah.
And so those weaknesses are going to come out. So if we aren't being authentic to who we are, and we're trying to be somebody else, that's going to become exposed.
And it's not even trying to be someone else, like you're trying to be fake. It's like
living to somebody else's agenda, trying to please somebody else.
Or like, hey, Jack Welch was a great leader. I'm gonna read all of his books, and I'm gonna try to be like Jack Welch. Well, Jack Welch was born with those certain strengths and things, gifts that he had. And if you're not that type of person, like I'm not saying you can't take the ideas and the concept of certain things, but you'll see people that try to be like that leader. You know what I mean? They'll dress like the person and so forth. But you are so true, man. Because when business, 1,000% is going to pressure cook every bit of you at some point, and all that kind of, I was trying to be like Jack Welch, will immediately go away, because you were forced to be who you really are and make decisions based off who you really are, not again, I don't want to use fake, because I don't think that person's trying to be fake, but it never works out as a leader. Go to the other side of the equation here with me. You see companies that fail. I've had, and you were my CPA during the time in 08 and 09 when my whole real estate stuff was just absolutely tanked to the bottom. When you see companies that fail, take away your big things of market or whatever it is, if you will, but what are some of the things that you see inside of companies that fail that maybe we that don't get to see 1,000 companies? What do you see inside of those companies?
Well, I think of the old Zig Ziglar line. Failure is an event, not a person.
Interesting.
And so we all have, and we look back, and I can a lot of a lot about my past.
Yeah.
Some of the very, very difficult situations that we we uniquely have gone through. I know a lot of your past as well. And I guess we can make this podcast really interesting with you into some of that. But one thing I think that we, first of all, understanding that we are not going to succeed in every aspect of business. Yeah. And we are not going to succeed in every aspect of life either. That we are going to have moments where we're not going to succeed. A business owner, when they go into business, that thinks that it's going to be easy, that kind of, because there's a lot out there that people I don't think realize. Most people that are employees their entire lives don't understand the difficulties and the pressure of getting into business. That you need to realize that it's just like having another child. Yeah. That it is. If you go into it not understanding that this is going to be extremely hard, that that's going to take a great deal of discipline. It's going to take a great deal of work. It's going to take sometimes being up all night. It isn't just coming in. I'm gonna be the business owner. I'm gonna hire these people. I'm gonna pay them, and they're gonna do my business for me. And I'm gonna spend all my time working on the business. This line drives me nuts. Well, you need to work on your business instead of in your business. Well, that's true, but when you first get into business, guess what? You are the owner operator, and you're gonna be there for a very long time.
You're the janitor. You're all of it.
And understanding at the front end that you're gonna have to fill in all those 4 quadrants. You're gonna have to do the things that you don't want to do, that you don't like doing. And it's going to really be a grueling process. And then you have to be willing to stick it out. So business owners, when they first get into it, and Eddie Wilson, who I don't know if you've had on this podcast,
sure.
but obviously very good friends of both of us, he talks about when you get into business that you need to have a set determined amount of time and a certain amount of resources or money that you're willing to invest in this. So when a business owner goes in, and we talked a little bit about the foundation, but when they go in and they have not defined those 2 areas for themselves, I am willing to give this X amount of time, and I'm willing to invest this amount of resources into it, and they have a plan on what that looks like, how that money is going to get spent, how those resources are going to be deployed, to make sure that there is a clearly defined marketing strategy, because when you're in the startup phase of business, it is all about cash.
Right.
That's where all the metrics, everything can be focused on is cash. Where's that cash coming in? Taking ownership of how that cash is going to get deployed, whether it's their cash, somebody else's cash, and then understanding these are the metrics that I need to hit in the short term. And then if I hit this time to where I've run out of time, I've run out of resources that I defined on the front end, and it's just not working, be willing to pull the plug, remembering that. That I may have failed at this, okay, but it doesn't mean that I'm a failure. It's just an event that maybe I wasn't cut out for this, maybe it wasn't the right time for this idea, maybe I didn't plan correctly, whatever the case may be. But truly understanding on the front end how much time and resources am I willing to put into this, spend enough time planning before you end up getting into it. Because if you just jump into something and say, I'm going to build this thing, I'm going to start borrowing all this money without that plan, without that roadmap, then the business will ultimately fail.
When you talk about failure for a second, one thing that I would give you and your firm, a completely honest a compliment on that I remember going through this, and I remember just being blown away by this. Had successful, and then when I failed in 2007, 8, whatever it was, and was just at the absolute bottom. I was I remember as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, extremely embarrassed. And I remember when we were doing taxes, and you were even getting, what do you call them? Not subpoenas, but we get sued. The service when they served, right? Yeah, they get served. And the coolest compliment I could probably give you right now is that, dude, there was never any, and I mean zero, care in the world or judgment from you or your entire staff at all. Like zero. Like it was like, because as an entrepreneur, it's like this very humiliating thing, and you're totally embarrassed about it. And somehow or another, like you guys were able to completely separate that, and you have that unique ability to not judge, not. Just like it's another day in the business, and how can we help move through it? It's really, really a cool, unique ability that you guys have, man.
Because once again, first of all, you know some of my past.
Yeah.
And it's really one of those things kind of in business that eventually you kind of know that you've achieved something in business when you get sued. Because it really is kind of one of those things that you've done enough to where that somebody isn't happy with you. And so I kind of say that half jokingly, but but in many ways I think it's true. But you know what, it's kind of one of those things, and we get served at the firm quite often with lawsuits for clients.
Because you're so many registered agents.
Yeah,
with
that,
LLCs,
correct.
Right?
And then just beyond just subpoena for documents or whatever the case may be, since we do house so much of our client data. And but it's one of those things that we realize that we know the business owner in this case. I knew you as a person.
Yeah.
And regardless of me getting served a document has no bearing on how I look at you as a person.
Yeah, no, it never changed anything. As you go through that, you're super worried about it. You're super worried about it as an entrepreneur just from your own friends and colleagues and stuff. And then, because we were friends and accountant, it was like, oh my God, now you're gonna know all this stuff. Like I don't want anybody to know this. And you were like, hey, here's another serve again. Hey, Drew, got another paper over here for you at that time. But there was just like none of that, like nothing ever changed. If anything, I think our relationship bonded even more during that time because to a certain degree, you're maybe almost like a therapist in the fact of, it was just like part of life, and it was like, hey, okay, so what's the next step? What do you do anything for me on this one? Like, super cool, man. It's a very unique ability that I think your whole firm actually has it. Like Jonathan and all your guys there have that ability, which I think is great. Going into Lodestar for a second now with your Lodestar tax and accounting consulting. Where do you see you're trying to take this right now? You have such a unique market in the fact of you kind of take clients that you want, and clients, you've built it to where you want to be at it right now. Where do you want to kind of take Lodestar, your company right now?
Well, I think for probably most individuals, have kind of these big, hairy, audacious goals, if we're going to quote that.
Sure.
That we have, and of course, there are things that I would like to do, but really, it's kind of one of these things that you get asked that question, and I've never set a financial goal for the business. I want to have $10 million in revenue this year, or some number. That's not really meaningful to me. The one thing, and it's really more kind of day by day, and of course we have meetings, we do dig into the numbers. I do hold my team accountable for our numbers, that type of thing. And of course you have to have a successful business, you do. But really, as far as on a day by day level, really trying to help our clients reach their goals is always the number one thing. And when we talk about, when we even do at this point, I do a lot of kind of my own quote unquote sales calls. If somebody wants to do business with us, I usually filter, I'll take that initial call most of the time. And the one thing we're truly trying to find out is, is there a core value alignment? Are we, because I really kind of view ourselves as almost a partner in a way with our clients to try to help them to get where they want to be. And because of that, of course, we have a lot that comes to us. Some people we work with, and others we don't. But I really think as I kind of look forward, and we've talked about specifics, and you and I personally, and not necessarily, I won't share that here at this point, but one thing I really would like to do is kind of make an impact in the way that dialogue happens between accountants and their clients. Yeah. To where there is an understanding that that relationship should be deeper, and the expectation of it, the pain points that we hear so often from clients when they call us is that the relationship isn't there. There's a lack of communication. They don't know what's going on, that type of thing.
You're saying when a new client calls into you to look to hire you, they're saying the lack of communication or frustration over here, that's where it's coming from.
Right, to be able to build something out there to really help people understand that really kind of influence the accounting space as well as also those who receive accounting services to build out what that relationship really truly should look like.
Is that why you added, you went through a brand shift a while back, and you went to the Lodestar, and you had a consulting piece to it, right? Because you are very accurate in the sense of, like, in a long time ago, 1990s, I suppose, I don't know. I had CPAs that it was more of, I took in my taxes and then I got it back, and that was it, right? But with your firm, it is way more of a partnership to a degree of you're invested in, I say invested, I don't mean financially invested, but you're invested in almost the success of what's happening inside of companies. Is that why you added the word consulting to that Lodestar?
No, that's actually why we added the word Lodestar. If I can explain.
Yeah, for sure.
So the concept of a Lodestar is Lodestar, and sometimes people, what is that? Or they'll actually, it becomes almost a conversation piece at times. But the idea of a Lodestar is really a star that helps provide direction, which is really why we kind of chose that. So the consulting, we hear a consultant, okay, what do you consult about? That type of thing. It's just kind of it's a general term. But one of the big overreaching emphasis that I have on my team, and what I really want for us at the firm level to be, is one that really does help provide direction to our clients. So we understand where are we going. A compass can help you know what direction you're going. When you think of a Lodestar, something that's fixed, this is the direction that we're trying to go. and then for us to be kind of one of those advisors, one of those key people that that they can look to try to help them to provide them the direction they need to be able to reach their goals.
Yeah. I mean, it's literally what you have done for me for 20, I guess, plus years now. Back up for a second. I'm trying to remember when we met, or how I even got over to you as a client. Do you know how I got over to you, or where it came from?
I do, and so of course we went to a similar elementary school years and years ago, and you're a few years younger than I am. I don't even think we ever met.
Yeah, I don't remember you in the school. Yeah,
before you moved, I think you'd moved away, and then you would come back.
Yeah.
So at that time you were actually living in Chicago.
Yep.
And we ended up meeting at a mutual client, and so so at this point, of course, it was just me still at that point. Small little business. It wasn't really a business at that point, and just kind of went in, and I was doing basically it was a tax client of mine, and they had hired you and a lady you were dating with at the time to come in, and I think you were doing some project management work for them.
Okay.
And I still remember to this day walking in, and it was actually in Griffith.
Yeah, I know. That's where I'm at right now in my head.
Right.
Yeah, I'm in a Griffith building with some beige carpet.
Yes. And so I remember kind of walking in and seeing you and this lady. Kind of, and you were in there working with our mutual client, just trying to help him get some project work together.
Yep.
And that type of thing. And
okay.
and that was I think the first time. I know that was the first time that we ever met. We walked into that room.
Because I remember you had a lot different hair back then. That was a long time ago, and you had more of a. If I remember right, you had more of like I would call it like a poofy swirl.
Maybe
it was like a poofy swirl. Yeah, dude. Now it's coming back to me of where we met, and it was in Griffith in a house / business. Place. Yeah, now
that building was torn down years ago.
Yeah,
by
they
the
actually
way.
tore it down,
and
it was a complete blessing to all of mankind. Dude, I can't believe that. That's where it was.
Yep.
Interesting, dude. Good memory, man. That's so funny. Dude. I have all these like memories like flushing back through my head right now. Inside of it, I thought it was going to be I thought maybe it was at one of those events that I'd put on in NWI.
No, we actually, type
of thing.
With that whole thing, actually, you had already been a client at that time for.
I was already a client in the time. Okay,
and we kind of help you a little bit with the foundational stuff.
Interesting.
When you put all that together, but no, because that was actually probably
maybe
a year later, year and a half later.
That would have been several years. That would have been like three or 4 years later from that time frame from there. Right on, dude. That's unique, man. Tell me now. This is something most people don't know about you that I'm going to let the cat out of the bag on this one. That most people just don't know is that you were actually a college wrestler.
I walked on in a club at Purdue.
Yeah.
So I did that briefly. Yeah.
And so I want to go into sports with you for a second. The sports world here for a second with you. In the wrestling world. What made you choose wrestling in all the different sports that were out there?
Okay, so
basketball, football, soccer.
So kind of an interesting. I was in high school, and Angie's here, and we grew up together, and I was a fat, pudgy, kid. And I was skinny when I was little, and then I kind of became this fat, pudgy kid, and then I got into high school, and it's kind of one of those things that, eventually I knew I wanted a girlfriend, this type of thing. And I knew I didn't have the athleticism at the time really to be a basketball player. My brother was a very good high school basketball player.
Younger, older?
I have a younger brother. He was a phenomenal high school basketball player. And so I knew I wasn't going to be a basketball player. And my dad wrestled.
Okay.
And so it was kind of one of those things that I knew that I kind of needed some discipline, and I needed to lose a bunch of weight because eventually I wanted to catch a girl.
Yeah.
So I figured probably the fastest pathway for me to do that was to get into wrestling practice.
That will do it, man.
And so sure enough, it provided the discipline and the weight loss.
Yeah.
And so by the time that Angie and I had our first date, I was pretty thin and had lost the most of the pudginess.
Now the question is, do you still have a singlet?
No, I don't. I don't have a singlet. So I think we might still have one of the jackets that actually was discovered. But I actually ended up going back to the high school and coached there.
Oh yeah, for wrestling.
Yeah. So with the classmate who was actually the head coach of the wrestling squad, and so he and I, kind of travel all over the place coaching the high school team for quite a few years. But no, I have not put a singlet on since.
So on the show I had a guy named Drew Manning.
Sure.
Was it Fit to Fat to Fit on the show, and I had him take his shirt off on the show, and he immediately like no problems. My question to you is, what would it take you? How much would it cost me to get you in a singlet on the show?
Hey, for you, I do anything. Now to get
you're hoping I don't have one in this drawer over here. I'm about to pull out an old swordsman singlet for you here.
Fortunately, I do try to keep myself in enough shape or it wouldn't be totally embarrassing. So,
hey, let me ask you one more question here about business, and this one I love to ask, especially guys at your caliber and your level. When you see in business, right? We all face hurdles, failures, difficult times. Two-part question here. Number one, in your business, right? What has been the biggest hurdle or frustration or battle that you went through, and then how did you overcome it? What made you, or what principles did you use to overcome that?
Well, I think, and this is going to be, I think, the case for most, not every business owner, obviously, I don't know, but I think for most business owners, that they do have one massive failure that they've experienced in their past. And I'm not getting into details for mine, and probably for many of the listeners, they may know what that is. But kind of coming on the backside of that, where kind of had literally the entire rug of everything that that I held dear in life from a business perspective pulled out from under me, and then recovering from from that. So kind of rebounding back from image. You understand some of that too. When you go through and you've been hurt by other people, maybe other people have been hurt by some of the decisions that you've made. And then there are some people that aren't going to forgive you. There are some people out there that it's kind of interesting. Like right now I have a podcast. I'll use this as a point of example that I shoot out, and it goes out every week and put it out there. There's somebody out there categorically every week, literally within minutes, that unlikes I know they didn't watch it.
No
because
way.
I just shot it out there, and they literally unlike it. So you always have those people
like immediately just dislike.
Just immediately dislike every week. And it's funny because I have one of my team members that tries to figure out who it is.
And
tries to
who
get
is
them off
this?
the list. And to me, it's a comical thing because I just watch. Gosh. To me, it's like, okay, so how fast is it going to happen this week? And literally, it's within.
It's like a 14-minute podcast, and 33 seconds after launch is dislike.
Right.
You came through the intro of it.
Right. So you always have people out there who are always going to look at you and define you by your failures.
Yeah.
And if we're going to be successful in life, regardless of where it falls, if it's in business, whatever the case may be, understanding that there is going to be an event. Mm-hmm. There is going to be something that's going to be in our past, some failure that we're going to have there. Mm-hmm. But we have to move past it. Mm-hmm. And if we're going, other people may not.
Yeah, sure.
So the first thing we really kind of have to do is maybe forgive ourselves for those mistakes, for those errors, that type of thing. I mean, it's a beautiful thing. We're both believers.
Yeah.
And so we have a Savior that's forgiven us, that loves us unconditionally, and understanding that we're His child, and guess what? If Jesus walked this earth and people hated Him to the point they literally put Him on a cross and crucified Him, regardless of what we do, good or bad, people aren't going to like us, right?
Right.
And so, but understanding that we are going to have a failure. We may have had failures in the past, but to push through, to learn from them. Don't definitely take ownership. I think first and foremost, take ownership of that.
Yeah.
Understanding, yes, we did make the mistake. Yes, we indeed maybe hurt someone. To try to whatever extent help reconcile those relationships, and then move on. Mm-hmm. And to do all the work that it takes to recover from them, to learn from those mistakes, and try not to make them again.
Yeah.
And to be learning and not dwell on them. We can't get up every morning and remind ourselves of the failures that we've had in the past, but to learn from them and move on. Use that to reach the next level as a stepping stone to be able to achieve greater things.
Yeah, it's very true, man. It's like I know, again, in my own business, I pretty much have shared everything I have in my business to anybody, but you get sued, you fail, and you. My fault, their fault, someone else's fault, it's irrelevant. Like, forget all that. I'm just saying, here's a failure that takes place, and inside of any failure, there's always, what do you call that? Damage, what do you call that? Collateral damage that takes place, right? So when something collapses, fails, whatever it may be, there's gonna be collateral damage that takes place. And I mean, when I first had like my massive big failure, dude, it took me so long to not physically move on, but to emotionally move on. And I never realized how much it drug me down, just because like emotionally, I couldn't. I had like so much guilt and so much frustration and so much all these like just horrible emotions, if you will, that it literally was like pulling me back. Now, if you were on the outside, you had thought that I gave two craps about what happened, and it was irrelevant to me, because I knew just that I had to take the step forward. I had to take another step forward to get back out and go do something, or I'm gonna fall into depression and never get out of bed again, right? So like physically, I was moving forward. But dude, I remember mentally and emotionally, man, it drugged me and drugged me and drugged me. And so eventually, basically, it was exactly what you said. I just realized, like, I'm not going to be able to turn back the clock and fix everything like it never took place, right? It's like, I mean, I wrecked on my mountain biking a couple of days ago. It's one on my arm over here. And it's probably going to leave no matter what medicine, it's probably going to leave some sort of a scar on my arm, right? And no matter what I do, there's going to be this scar there. And I think in business sometimes it's like, I don't know any business, you mentioned this earlier, like I don't know any business owner that doesn't have scars from business on somewhere, somehow, that are there. And the hardest thing is to move past it. Because if I know this is who you are as internally, like in one of your core values, is that it's inside of me, like I sincerely care. Like I truly, deeply care about what took place, happened, my fault, your fault, it doesn't matter. I was like, I just truly care, and it's hard to move past that when you feel like you've made a mistake and made that, that failure took place. But at somehow, some way, you got to move on it, or it's going to drag you like an anchor that never lets you move forward in business and life and growth inside of it. So yeah, great advice, man. That is easier said than done. But dude, that is dead on accurate and you can think about how many business owners go through that. You have done a ton of taxes, and I would dare say that highly the majority, 90% plus maybe, have gone through failures inside of their business. Yeah. And it's the ones that can push through and continue on and find a way to get through it that can succeed out of it, man. But like I said, is much easier said than done. I want to move to a money question here with you for the show, and it'd be a unique one. Obviously, you are a accountant, CPA, but we'll see what your answer is here. So this is Josh Belk from Lodestar Tax and Accounting. Money is blank. You fill your answer out here, and I think it's fair to tell the audience you were one of the original gangsters of the Money Is show. Like, I think it was maybe for sure inside of the top 5. I mean, like first 5 that I ever did was with you. It was like, and this would be cool for you because it was like Gary Vaynerchuk, Grant Cardone, Kevin O'Leary, Josh Belk. I'm pretty sure that was the order.
That's like stepping off a cliff. Right?
I'm pretty sure that was the order, if I'm not mistaken. And for number 5, I believe was Dave Overman.
Okay.
Was number 5.
I think you're right.
In that order there. But when I did it back then, I didn't have these cool signs. I didn't have all this the way I do it now, and I don't have it laid out in my office. So I wanted to redo it with you. And that one was 100% taxes. I don't know if you remember or not.
It was.
We sat there and went deep into tax structure and all kinds of stuff. So on this one, I'm gonna give this one back to you. Money is blank. You fill this out, and then me and you will talk about this right here.
And make your comment about making sure we spell it correctly.
Sharpie. Good luck. It happens all the time. So if you misspell it, we can redo it. Hey, you're a CPA, not a English teacher.
Okay.
You sign it?
Oh, I can.
All right. Here we go. From my CPA to hopefully your future CPA. Money is a reflection. Now, my brain is now running through all my signs that I have. Money is a reflection. I am 99% sure, And Brittany can let me know if I'm off on this, but I don't think we have that word on any of the signs. I don't think we have that word. So this is my favorite time because it's a new word. Money is reflection. All right, give me what it means to you.
Well, I think that when we take a look at how somebody uses their money, it's going to be a reflection of who they are. And so if you were to look into, I think if you were to take a look, a snapshot at somebody's checkbook, for example, you would and to see how they spend their money, you would, I think, learn a lot about who that person truly is.
That's so true, man.
And so I think it truly is a reflection. So money has such a bad vibe around it. You hear this verse. You've even mentioned it here on the podcast. I'll talk scriptural principles here just for a moment, if you don't mind. We have that scripture verse that says, and it's so often quoted, right? That money is the root of all evil. Well, that's not what the verse says. It is the love of money. It's the root of all kinds of evil. And as I was going through, actually a couple weeks ago, the pastor at the church that I attend, he was in Acts chapter 8, and of course when you go to this chapter, there's a story in that chapter almost everybody thinks about. But at the beginning of that chapter, actually, there's a story that actually illustrates this particular principle. It was a man by the name of Simon who was a sorcerer.
Okay.
And he had all kinds of wealth. He had all kinds of fame because he was able to kind of use his gift, so to speak, to be able to basically tell other people what was going to happen and the whole 9 yards. And so he had greatly monetized from this. Well, Simon eventually, he had ended up going to hear a man by the name of Philip, who was one of the 12 apostles, speak. And at that particular event, he became a believer. Well, you read a little bit later on, a few verses later in the chapter, and you find out that he had ended up crossing the path of Peter and John. And he had saw Peter and John putting their hands on someone, and essentially that person had received the Holy Spirit and some of the power that had come along with it. And he became rather enamored with it, and he went to Peter, and he told Peter that how much money would it take for me to get this particular gift, which of course this is a spiritual gift that cannot be obtained with finances. And I think still in his mind, when you kind of read into the passage a little bit, it appears that he felt that he could take his money and buy everything that he possibly wanted. And he obviously probably had greed. And it was a reflection of who he was. He was a man that essentially wanted to use his money for a certain thing. We end up also finding in this particular passage that he was told by Peter, your money is going to perish with you. Yeah. It's going to be destroyed, just like you're going to be destroyed. Eventually we all have an exit strategy or an exit plan, and that's going to be death, and our money does too. And that money eventually, it doesn't go with us. Eventually it needs to be deployed somewhere. Well, he did not know how to handle this. And eventually we see that he became envious, he became bitter, he became angry, and he ended up doing all kinds of foolish things, wicked things. And when you go into that passage in 1 Timothy that talks about for the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil, or is the root of all evil, if you read around it, we find out that that greed, that pursuit of money for selfish reasons, does end up resulting in envy, in bitterness, and it does lead to a foolish lifestyle. Kind of going back to the beginning of the podcast, talking about why do business owners fail? If greed is the motivator for them, if they're getting into business purely for their own financial gain, for their own elevation of their eyes in other people, they will find themselves in a position of being envious because somebody's always going to have more. Right. They're going to be bitter because guess what? There are people out there that aren't going to think that you're as great as you think you are. And really it will lead to doing all kinds of foolish things and making all kinds of foolish decisions. And so money truly is a reflection of who we are, where we're wanting to go, and what we're wanting to eventually accomplish with our lives. Yeah,
it's a great answer, and it's a very, very accurate answer. And the statement you made makes me, that stuck in my head was, take a screenshot of your checkbook, or you use checkbook because you're very old, so I'm going to use your
debit card transaction.
Screenshot of your app which has all your transactions on it. But you take a screenshot of that and you kind of go through there and think about if you handed just say 30 days worth of it to someone else, what would that tell them about you? That's a really cool way to look at it. You know what I mean? Like what would they if they broke it all down and okay, this was for food and this was for this or whatever it was, and it's like as they did that, what would happen if if people saw 30 days of transactions in your life, and what would it tell them about you and your life? Dude, that is a really unique way to think about it, man. I'm thinking through my thinking through my own expenses right now. I'm like, man, what would someone see about me and think about? They didn't know me, right? Then here's what this guy does with his money. That's a cool way to think about it.
But even
man.
if they did know you, they thought they knew you, but you can find out. I mean, do they have an alcohol addiction? Do they have what is it that's going on in their life?
Do they give money? Where do they give money to?
Yeah. What is the reason why they're doing it? If you see, they're buying all kinds of cars versus they're taking a chunk of their money and they're investing it in the lives of other people or in a nonprofit to pursue to solve a particular problem, you're going to find that out.
It's a great way to look at it. It's kind of a scary way to look at it too now. I go give away more money every month now in case everybody gets a month of my checking account, so they'll think good about it, man. But what a good answer to money is a reflection, because it is truly a reflection. I always say that money never changes people. It will only reveal, or in your word right here, it will reflect who you really are. Like in Simon's example or illustration you gave right there, it was just revealing who was inside of him, and since money was a big piece of his life, it revealed the ego, the mindset that he had inside of it. You know what I mean? Last thing I tell you, man, I read it. I don't know if you know the guy I interviewed a while back. I can't think of his last name right now, but just irrelevant. But he's a financial planner, family planner. And I thought it was so unique. Everybody talks about generational wealth. Mm-hmm. You hear that word thrown around nonstop, myself included. And we were talking about generational wealth, and he's like, most of the time when people think about that, they think about Rockefellers and the Walton family and so forth, right? And he's like, this unlimited, for God knows how long, wealth is going to be established there. And he's like, that's such a one in a literally 100 million people type of wealth that exists, right? And his whole research and study that they did at their office was most wealth never makes it past 3 generations, was the whole outlook and process of it. He said, if you actually knew that no matter how hard you worked, Andrew, no matter how much you set aside, no matter how much you stuffed away and spent all this time building stuff, if you knew that after 3 generations it was all going to be gone, when you're dead, it's all going to be gone anyways, it's not going to actually create actual long-term generational 20 generations down the road wealth, would it change what you do today with your money? And I thought, dude, again, it was like one of those thoughts that made me really think of actually I think I would. And his whole point was you should spend the money on the relationships that you want, because it's not going to last forever. Even when you're gone and you talk about legacy, it's not going to go as long as you think it's going to go. He said most, at the max, last 3 generations, most of them don't make it past the kids. The grandkids actually don't even hardly ever get any amount of it. And it's a unique thought of, and it made me think about with all the taxes and all the money that you get to see in there. And I wonder, and maybe this be an off-air question, but I wonder how many times you have seen money last for generations, or you're doing the accounting for the 3rd generation of a family that still has something. And my guess is that's probably pretty rare. Yeah,
to be honest with you, I can't even think of one.
I know, that's what's kind of crazy if you stop and think about it. We all hear this word generational wealth. And I'm not sure that, and his whole point was, he's like, I'm not sure that even actually exists. He's like, because he said, even though you set up all these irrevocable trusts and stuff, he's like, dude, they'll still find ways to break them, throw them apart, trash them. Because if they don't understand, they never met you, they have no respect for you, no ill will or either way towards you, and it's just a money thing for them, And I thought, dude, and it makes me think, again, it goes back to reflection, and Simon is where all these thoughts are coming from. But interesting point, man. I love the answer. Money is a reflection, dude. Great answer. I appreciate you coming on the show, man. Anytime I come out here, I appreciate you coming out here. I want you to get Ben out here. I keep telling you to bring Ben out here, man. Just because I want to take him to the space station and watch a kid run around and scream all day.
Oh, he'd love it.
So I want you to get Ben out here as soon as possible on the show. So anyways, you guys watch the show. I appreciate you watching the Money Is Show this week. We'll see you next week on the Money Is Show. This is Josh Belk, my CPA and accountant.